Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here are Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Hello and welcome to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall. He is the Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday to you as well, and I'm holding in my hands your book, Keep What's Yours, How to Leverage the New Tax Law to Create Unfair Advantage Over Your Competition. In this case, our competition is the federal government.
Yes, and the state.
And the certain extent, the state as well. And speaking of, do you do taxes for people in Missouri and Illinois?
Yes.
When it comes to finding someone to do your taxes for you, do you have to be licensed in every state? Or?
No, technically, California is the only state that you have to actually have a California ID, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Other than that, nobody else requires one. So,
what's the weirdest state that you had to do someone's taxes?
California. California or New York. New York is crazy. So if anybody ever works in New York, even if it's a day, New York says on your W-2 that the full income that you earn is taxable in that state.
That day.
But, so if you make $100,000 in the state of Missouri, but you worked one day in New York forces your W-2, that's the power that they have, the W-2 to show state wages of $100,000 paid in New York. And you actually have to go through the system and prove that you
only there for one day.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So
because they want
their money.
And what's New York's tax rate?
It depends on where you're at. I think it gets as high as, like, if you're in Manhattan, gets as high as like 12.5%.
So 12.5% of $100,000. Oh, yeah. They want $12,000?
Yes. Yeah.
Even though I worked there one day.
Yeah. And then they have, I guess it's like, well, they don't get it. You know, you got to break it down and say your income divided by, X number of working days is X. And then that's what you.
And then they'll take 12% of
whatever that is,
whatever
$1,000, whatever the case may be. So,
man,
yeah, they don't mess around either.
In the state of Missouri's effective tax rate,
I think the highest 4.8, 4.87.
4.8, yeah. We always just kind of like talk. Oh, it's about 5%.
Yeah. Well, in the past, the highest rate was like 5.2, 5.4. But remember, last year they gave us a little.
We had a surplus.
Little crumbs tossed out there, and so they said, "Hey, we're going to take it to 4.8," which again,
0.2% tax break.
Yeah. So it's still a tax break. I'll take it.
Yeah. You know what? I will too.
Now your personal property or your real estate tax just skyrocketed by 25%, so it offsets it, and you're still in the hole.
Well, my question always is, okay, fine, but where are you going to get the money that you were getting?
That's the question.
It's not. What'd you cut?
Yeah.
What? Because. We had a surplus, but what happens when we don't?
Well,
we have a deficit.
They just raise it. Nobody says a word.
Right. So we'll just raise it back up again.
That's right. Jump right back where we came from.
Magical sliding tax scale. So here on the show, we always talk taxes, and we talk about financial news that is going on. Anything, what's the latest? The tax, not the tax, but the debt ceiling.
So they're still
going on.
Still going on. I know that Biden did cancel his trip. I think he was going to Europe or Middle East or something like that.
He's on a whirlwind trip, and I think he's cutting it short.
Well, I think he stayed. He didn't even go yet. So they're still kind of negotiating back and forth, and they have a couple of days.
And then, but Janet Yellen's going, guys, June 1st.
Yeah, she keeps
pushing. I've been telling you this
originally
for months.
It was September. I think they said September 30th. Is what the original number was. Now, how far off their math?
Then they said middle of summer, and then they said middle of June, and now they're saying like June 1st. June 1st. And hey, let's put a date on the calendar.
I think
and just say, guys, look.
Yeah, everybody should kind of like reset their calendars. And
we got time. No.
Focus on this.
We don't. have time.
And they may already have a deal put in play. They're just going to drag it out a little bit, and say, hey, you take credit for this.
Political theater.
Yeah, you take credit for that, and we'll save the day at the end of the end of the week.
Yeah, so. Let's make sure we both look good.
Yeah.
And that we both look bad.
Yeah, well, they both look bad.
Right. So, I mean, this is another thing because defaulting on our debt would be catastrophic.
Huge.
Not just in this country, but the entire world.
Globe. And the issue today is, without getting deep into some of this stuff, and people have read up on it, so they're aware of it, the power of the dollar being used as the standard currency across the world. I believe back they were saying like 95% of all transactions were used in the dollar.
Wow.
Today it's like 45% is used in the dollar. So we have some weird, the BRIC countries, are actually now banding together to say, hey, we're not going to use the dollar. Now, whether the U.S. gets in there and negotiates and gets something back on track, that's to be seen. But the problem is one of the big issues was if the U.S. ever puts a sanction on a foreign country for whatever they did, the issue is they're just basically taking the dollars away from them, okay? And there's a couple of, especially the African companies or countries, are like, we don't care. We'll just trade in something other than the dollars. You can't take it away from us.
I heard one of those countries is going crypto now.
Yeah. South America, I think they went, I forget how much they bought. It's kind of still in that, I guess, experimental stage. Mm-hmm. But that's that digital currency to try to get it up and get it going. And with the crazy stuff like FTX, funny part is FTX was, they say, as big as Madoff's issues. Haven't heard a word about it. Just like fell to the wayside.
Yeah.
So the question is I've read some stuff that says that kid will get off, no penalties, no sanctions, no jail time.
Too big to jail.
Yeah. And so you go, And then the next question is, how many of the politicians, because he gave both sides. So he gave Republicans and he gave the Democrats. Democrats were, I say, in the public, if you want to call it, they know who got what. The Republicans, he did it through one of the dark pools.
Yeah.
So he still gave to both sides.
Which, so glad that you can give money to politicians through the dark way.
Yeah, and hide it, which is nuts.
Yeah, that does wonders
and somebody,
for our political.
Yeah, somebody asked him, why did you do that? From a standpoint, not why he gave money to both sides. He was smart enough to give to both sides so that...
Why didn't you give openly to Democrats but hid to Republicans?
Republicans was hidden, and he said because the Democrats would get mad at him if they found out that he gave the same amount to Republicans.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So,
of course.
But again, that's huge. And again, none of the politicians have stepped up and said, hey, we were going to give our money back that you gave us. I think there was like maybe 4 or 5 of how many hundreds that got cash. So that's the question of the day.
And that FTX thing, was that a Ponzi scheme?
Technically, yeah.
Technically?
Because he didn't have the money.
Yeah.
He was using somebody else's money to move money around, basically.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's a
robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yep. And, robbing Patrick to pay Peter.
I was going to say, it was the general public, whoever had money sitting in there that just one day it went poof, and you're like, hey, wait, what happened? So.
Yep. All right. Well, on the show today, I want to get into credit cards and 529s and credit card rewards. How does all of that play in with one another? Well, there's a new credit card out there that allows you to, rather than collect rewards or miles or whatever, you can dump some money into a 529 that will go towards college education.
Exactly.
Go towards high school tuition if you're in private school. Go towards your children's education. So would you rather, save up money to get that flight to Fiji, or would you rather save for your child's education every time?
Let's do Fiji.
You go to the grocery store. Well, your kids are all out of college.
Yeah, no.
So we'll do that on the other side of this. It's Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. The name of the book, Keep What's Yours, the name of the lifestyle that Jeff lives. As he's walking around town, he said, I wonder how we can keep more of our money. That is the tagline. That is the name of the show. And that's what he does for me and what he can do for you. I know that we kept $1,200 last year. We kept $1,200 2 years ago, and it was just by using was it the FSA?
FSA,
flexible spending account that I got to pay for my son's daycare and his schooling anyway.
Exactly.
Might as well have money taken from our paychecks, bypass the federal government.
Exactly.
Go into an account and pay it with that tax-free money.
Exactly.
And that's how you keep more of your money. And there's tons of things out there for you. If you don't have any kids in school, there's probably something else Jeff can look at for you. Medical bills are a big thing that you can save money and pay with using tax-deferred or tax-free money.
This is where the confusion comes into play. That's an HSA, which is a health savings account.
And they all got, beautiful acronyms and all this stuff.
3-digit letters for everything.
That's what Jeff is for, is because he goes through and finds them all for you.
Yeah.
Nobody tells us about these things. No. I would love, honey, the IRS is coming tonight, and make them a pot roast and
run out the back door.
Yeah. No, this would be a good thing. The IRS comes over. It's a wonderful, it's like the 50s. Wonderful, wonderful meal, Mrs. Gilbert. Now, let's talk about your tax situation, where we can save you money.
Never going to happen.
Never going to happen. Never going to happen. They don't even have enough employees.
Exactly.
To get through the backlog of tax returns. Have you seen the paper at some of these facilities? It's pouring out of boxes, and they can't even eat lunch in their lunchroom because
just the paperwork is atrocious. Now, they're slowly getting caught up. So hopefully we've seen a better response on the phone where we can actually call within 45 minutes. Somebody answers. But we are running into a snag where the people that answer now are like, hey, we can't help you. You got to call back. So very frustrating to get somebody on the phone to actually talk to a real person, explain your situation, and then after a couple minutes they go, oops, sorry, call back.
Well, I'm still stunned and slightly, disappointed how excited you got when you said, oh, it only takes 45 minutes for them to answer your phone.
Versus 3 hours, and you forgot who you had them on hold. And you're
right.
Like, wait, there's a person on the phone. Wait a minute.
Wait, are you the cable company or are you the IRS?
Yeah.
But, in Jeff's world, 45 minutes for the IRS to actually answer your phone call, that's
beautiful.
Amazing.
It's beautiful.
That just goes to show you how terrible
it
was, and still kind of, sort of
is, but it's getting better with the new, I guess he's I don't want to say chairman, the director of the IRS.
Used to be, and then he went away.
And came back.
They're like, we got a bunch of money, and we need someone who knows what they're
doing, how to run this thing.
To disperse it out so it runs better, so they brought him back in. But back to my original point, the IRS isn't going to come over for Sunday dinner and tell us how to save our money. That's why we got to find Jeff Zufall. 636-394-5524. He found money for me using an FSA. And there's a couple other things that we're going to attempt to do. Mm-hmm. It's all legal. It's all written in the tax code.
Always.
Jeff knows about it, and the average, person out there on the street, married, couple, singles, people with kids, people without kids, we don't know anything.
Exactly.
Well, because unless you read the tax code.
Or you stumble into it and go, hey, could it be applied to what I got going? And in some cases, yes. In some cases, no. So.
And that's what I like about the book. It's really little and short and easy. There's some cartoons in here to kind of break up the monotony of talking tax code.
Yes.
But you kind of skim through it and you dog-ear a couple pages and say, well, this looks like it might work for me. And this looks like it might work for me. And you bring the book in with Jeff at an appointment and you say, Jeff, pages, 63, 79, and 70, whatever. Let's look into that and see if that can work for my situation. And then what you'll probably say is, well, you missed page 52.
True.
81 and page 84.
And we can work backwards into it. And,
So Jeff can find ways for you to keep more of what's yours. 636-394-5524. And if you want to get that book for free, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com, top right-hand corner, free book. And in the top right-hand corner, I should also mention, where's my refund?
Yes.
If you're still looking for your refund from the IRS, you're getting money back, but it still hasn't hit your account, go ahead and go out to Jeff's website, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. It redirects you to the IRS's website.
Yes.
And then you could put your information in and find your refund, see if it's in process, or, maybe it's out for delivery.
It could say, hey, the last one I looked at said, would it expect it in your bank by whatever it was, the 27th of the month.
Oh, they even have a date.
Yeah, they put a date on there.
Ooh,
if it's already been processed and they're running with it. So in other cases, it may be blank. That's kind of an issue. Call us. We can start that process to see what in the world's going on. Because a lot of people think that the IRS calls us direct and goes, oh, Joe and Mary's, tax return should be done next week. No, they do not communicate with us. All communication goes to the client, and then basically the individual or the client needs to tell us, hey, I got this letter. And then we take off and run from there. And in some cases, it might be hey, you owe us $33. People just pay it. It's $33. Be done with it. We need to see that letter.
Yeah.
So any correspondence you get from the IRS, shoot it over. We'll see if you need to worry about it, not worry about it, and go from there.
And if you're in the process of dealing with the IRS, maybe you didn't use Jeff to do your taxes, and now you got a big mess on your hands.
Yes.
Jeff can always go back and look at it. And if you have a small business, that's where Jeff shines. He specializes in small businesses. He can do an audit of your business and find out where you're bleeding money and how to maximize what actually is coming in.
And no offense to most people, but most people cannot read or understand a financial statement. And no offense, but nobody ever taught you how to read it and what it actually means from how healthy you are, or you skidding by, or you dire straits. But we can help you work forward from that point.
And for all the people that have started small businesses, especially since COVID, a lot of people have left the workforce and said, I'm going to chase my dream and work on my own.
Yeah.
You open that flower shop, you run that T-shirt printing business on Etsy. You are good at flower arrangements.
Yes.
And you've gotten pretty good at screen printing T-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
But how are you at running your own business and
running QuickBooks, making sure that
running the books?
Yeah, it's reconciled, that the data feeds are coming in correctly, that stuff's allocated to the right categories. That's the stuff that we see that people go, oh, I can do it. And then when they get in there, because big picture, QuickBooks is kind of like I'll say the premier software that's used out there. There's a bunch of other different companies, but they're just not as big as what QuickBooks is. QuickBooks is owned by Intuit. Intuit basically is probably one of the biggest software companies for taxes out there. The problem is most people, the old version, and we see it every day, they're running on desktop, which means it resides on your desktop of your computer or your notebook or wherever. They're discontinuing that, I believe, June 1st or July 1st, one or the other. So they're forcing you to buy QuickBooks Online, which is a little different. It's the same results, but it's a little bit different to get there. So a lot of people go switch and they think, oh, it's as easy as what it was on desktop. And they're on online and they're like, man, I don't know where anything is.
Right.
And there's a learning curve, a huge learning curve in there. So we can help you walk through that kind of stuff. And when I say they won't support it, just Intuit, if you have an issue, a glitch, whatever, they're not going to support it.
Right. We're done with that.
Yeah.
We're all online now.
If you could function and operate with it, you're fine. As long as you don't need help, you're okay. But at some point in time, it will cease to work with operating systems and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Which is way out of my pay grade.
Have to move over at some point.
You'll be forced out. Yeah.
It's like when you're using Internet Explorer. That doesn't, now it's Microsoft Edge. Yeah. And it's like, well, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Exactly.
But they're always doing something. So, and Jeff will tell you, I'm sure, that when you're a small business and you're just starting out, you're the CEO and you're also the chief marketing officer and you're the accountant and you're the HR department and you're the manual labor.
You're the janitor, you're landscaper, everything.
You're wearing every hat. Yes. You got a lot going on. Yep. And one of the most important things is to make sure that you've got your books balanced.
Yes.
And if you're busy wearing all the other hats, maybe hand that hat over to Jeff.
We see a lot of people who bring us a year's worth of bank statements at the end of the year, and they're like, hey, it's all in there. But we don't know where you spent money, what you bought, so it makes it very difficult and honestly very expensive to put it together correctly. And just words of wisdom, the IRS is hiring all these people. They're slowly getting the wheels in motion, and they're going to be looking for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where they're, hey, your books aren't correct. What else is wrong here? And they start digging deeper, and that's their job, is to find stuff.
Yep. So, and the question is, well, why are you coming after me? I'm just a small business trying to make, keep my head above water. Well, if you're not doing your taxes properly.
Well, that. And they say that, nobody will be affected under $400,000 of income or whatever. I think it's a luck of the draw, basically. You could make $30,000 a year in revenue. You might get picked. I mean, that's the way you got to look at it.
Yep.
Not say, they'll never see me, and I'm going to do this and this. That'd be the first time that you say that, boom, somebody's going to send you a letter and go, hey, show up downtown for an audit.
And I was talking to somebody the other day, a business owner, and they deal in $100,000 deals. And he was telling me, and they got a big shop and everything is running. And he's like, I just can't figure out why we're not making money. And I'm like, oh my, this is Jeff Zufall written all to a T over it.
And there's I'm not going to say what it is, but I know exactly what it is that they're not looking at. And it's very simple, right in their face.
Yeah.
And it's just everybody overlooks it because you're trying to dig into these deep, hey, what about this? What about that? It's your daily operating cost. So the theory is when you show up every day, you put the key in the lock. What's it cost you to flip that lock?
Until you close it.
Exactly. And there's a number. And we're all snowflakes. Everybody's different. It just depends upon the business, their circumstances. And so even if you work from home, and that's the one thing that we see that people just overlook. And they're like, well, hey, I made all this money, or I think it's not, you're not, there is no I think. Other people are like, well, I think my electric bill is this, and and it's like, no. What exactly is it to the dollar?
Let's plug it in and figure this whole thing out. So if you're a small business and you're like, I know we got to be making money, but I keep showing that we're in the red.
Yeah.
What is going on? Jeff can look at it for you.
We can sit down and tell you, hey, it cost X, and this is what you need to do.
Yep.
And we can help walk you, whatever you want to call it, to that other side to get you back sort of profitable.
And then do you send people back into the wild and say,
yes,
good luck?
Well, we send them with homework and give them 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever the
Can people hire you and say, Jeff, this is great. Why don't you just handle the books for us?
Yeah, and a lot of people just go, hey, do this for me.
Yeah. I'm too busy arranging flowers. I don't have time to do
exactly.
this.
But other people are like, no, I need to know my nuts and bolts of my business. We give you the homework. You go home, put it together, bring it back to us. Could be a week, could be 2 months. Just depends upon what it is. And then we kind of walk through the numbers and go from there.
Sure. And I don't know how I'm bad at math. I've never been good with numbers. I don't know how anyone even attempts to do this on their own, but those entrepreneurial types, they're like, I can do this.
Well, yeah.
Until they realize they can't.
Well, and some people are really good at math. I say really good at math. And from math, generic math, not, calculus and all kinds of weird stuff. But the bulk of America is scared to death of math.
Yeah.
And we see that all the time. Because I can talk percentages to people, and they're like, oh, yeah. But then when you say, hey, that percent equals X, they're like, whoa, that's a lot of money. It's like, exactly. So, no offense, it's just, I think that's one of those things like public speaking and snakes. And
well, I just saw a story that says 1 in 8 people have anxiety when it comes to doing math.
Yes.
And it's like, get a calculator, but they're like, no,
it's just math in general. And that's why I always say math always wins, because at the end of the day, it either adds up or it doesn't.
You can't really argue with it. You can't bend it. You can't,
It is what it is.
It is what it is. You can bend your operating costs. Mm-hmm. You can make adjustments here and there, but the math is the math is the math.
Exactly. You're in the hole. You got to figure out why you're in the hole. Where's it coming from? Where do you stop the bleeding?
Yeah. Moving a 2 over here, I think technically that would be called cooking the books.
Yes, that is definitely cooking the books.
Well, now it looks pretty good. Yeah, well, you didn't do the math right.
Exactly. Seen that too.
Yeah. So Jeff can help you out if you're a small business. 636-394-5524, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. There's a new credit card out that will, instead of push money towards flights and hotel stays and cash back and all that stuff, will push money into a 529 for your kids' education. How does it work? What is a 529? And do we have to pay taxes when it comes to those credit card rewards? Do I have to submit those to the government? We'll talk all of it in the next segment. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall on the Big 550 KTRS.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the Big 550, back to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert. Jeff is the senior tax strategist and wealth advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Let's talk about this new credit card. I think Fisher-Price is working with MasterCard, and the idea is, well, instead of, doing just straight up cash back, instead of doing vacation points and airline points and everything, why don't you save for your kids?
Exactly.
And your kids' college fund.
Yeah. So it's Fisher-Price kind of tie in with, young children starting a 529. But let me back up for a minute and explain what a 529 is first. So 529 is referred to as a college savings program. Each state has its own, I'll say, trustee. Okay, so back when this thing came out, I don't know how long ago, every state grabbed somebody, basically a mutual fund family, and they went from there. So Missouri has the Missouri Most program, which is a lot of Vanguard funds, no load in a sense, if you want to call it that. The concept is you could take money, state of Missouri, just use that as our example for the time being. You can do up to $16,000 per year, and you will get a 5% discount from the state of Missouri on that $16,000 that you put in there. It grows tax deferred. So if you have growth over, a 10 or 15 or 18-year period, when you take that money out and use it for, I'll say, higher education or school, it's a tax-free withdrawal. So you do not pay tax on it on federal or state. So one of the perks to that is most people are like, I don't want to do that in case, my children don't go to school or they get a full ride or whatever the case may be, they go to military. But the twist to it is you could use up to $10,000 a year to pay for private elementary or private high school.
So it's college savings plan, but if you're at a private school, in grade school or high school, that requires money, tuition, you can use it for that as well.
Exactly. So anybody can open an account. So literally you can open an account for yourself today. There's no age limit. If you have kids, maybe grandkids, great concept as grandparents for the grandchildren. Instead of giving them a new toy, whatever the case may be, put money in a 529. And then the concept behind that is that money grows tax deferred for 10, 12, 15 years, whatever it is. And then as a grandparent, it really doesn't show on the children's or your grandchildren's, what's called expected family contribution, because it's not really the kid's money.
Yeah.
So grandparents own it. And the concept behind that is you show up in the junior or senior year and say, here's some money, poof, you're off to the races.
And the idea, I guess, is it's not their money. It's eventually going to be going to whatever university.
Exactly. They're the beneficiary, but you are the owner of that contract, if you want to call it that.
But if you end up not going to college, or you end up getting a full ride, or you end up going to the military, in which we will pay for your school when you get done with the GI Bill, or, any other number, or maybe it's not for me anyway, I'm just going to enter the workforce. You will then have to pay taxes.
Hypothetically. So the IRA, which is not an IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act of last year, there's a provision in there that says you have leftover money in a 529 plan, and you don't want to take it out and pay tax on it because you go, hey, that was the whole purpose. But let's say you saved diligently and then your child got a full ride, and you're like, what do I do with this money? So literally what can take place is you can take this starts 2024 and beyond. You can take whatever for the child, you can take whatever their Roth contribution amount is. So that's $6,000. You can convert, if you want to call it that, transfer $6,000 from the 529 to a Roth every year, up to $35,000 total.
In
lifetime.
The child's name?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So they did such a good job in high school that they got a full ride to college. You can then move that money into a Roth, which would be saving for their retirement.
Exactly.
You did such a good job. You got school paid for, so all that money that we saved for you is now going to still be with you.
Exactly. It's
just in the
Roth.
form of starting your retirement early.
It's a Roth IRA, maxing out. So if you're under 50, basically, you can do $6,000. If you're over 50 or 51 plus, or they clock it as 49 and a half.
I mean, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Whoever came up with this in part of that inflation, which again, Inflation Reduction Act, it was not reducing inflation. No. Just a nice catchy name. whoever came up with this was actually thinking this through. So the trick to it is you can also change beneficiaries. So let's say that your child gets a full ride. You convert your $6,000 up to the max of $35,000, and then you change kids. Do the same thing.
You can move it from when, and you would
exactly.
So it's tied to a Social Security number.
Yeah, change beneficiaries.
Just change it, and nothing happens.
And then start your process going forward again.
So the oldest child got a full ride. Mm-hmm. The youngest child didn't. Well, let's just move some of their money.
You can move it all to them and then use it for their education as you go forward. I mean, typically what we see is I say no offense to the college kids today, but there is no such thing as a 4-year plan anymore. Mm-hmm. It's a 5 or a 6 year.
5.5 for me.
Yeah. So again, you go, you've got this, I say burn rate, if you want to call it that, as time goes on. So what we see typically is by the youngest child, say 2 or 3 kids, by the time the second or third kid shows up to school, they don't have as much as what the other children did. But so let's say that you underfunded your 529 and you go, I really need money put in there on an annual basis. So when the tuition bill comes due, don't pay the tuition. Put it in the 529 first. You can do $16,000 a year and get a 5% or 4.8 state deduction.
Because again, like with my son's school, with college tuition, it's something that you have to pay for anyway.
Exactly.
Might as well use the government to help kick in.
Exactly. They put the rules out there. They set the laws.
It's all legal.
Totally
they
legal.
made the rules, and it's up to us to use them. And this is a way. And you know how infuriated I would be if I found out that I'm just paying something and I didn't realize I could funnel it through a 529.
Yeah. And
get the government to kick
in.
Get
a little bit of a discount on it. So it's a beautiful thing to do.
The Missouri Most program, the 529 for the state of Missouri.
Yes.
If I put money in there, am I paying taxes to the federal government?
No.
On that money? The federal government's in league.
They're in the same
with every
bracket
state.
As long as it's used for, I say, higher education, if you want to call it that. You can't take it out to go buy a new car for the kid. It has to be used for, and again, when I say this, higher education, it's tuition. One thing a lot of people forget in a 529 plan, room and board, okay? So you don't have to be on campus. It gets a little tricky from a tax return standpoint, but let's say that you rented an apartment. You let them all, 5-6 guys all rent an apartment. As long as the rent that you pay is not higher than the highest rent for that campus, in a sense, you get to take that deduction too. So you can take money out to pay rent, and then it's non-taxable to you.
Oh, that's interesting. So a room and board, which is all part. I mean, if they make the colleges,
sure.
I remember
freshman year, you're forced.
They made me stay in the dorms.
Yeah.
If they're making you do that as part of your college experience, of course, room and board should be included.
Any equipment that's needed, computers. Originally it came out as tuition only. Mm-hmm. But now, you need a new computer. You need an iPad.
Books are just as expensive as tuition.
I forget what school that was. There was a school I think my son, I won't name the college that he went to, but literally I think the books were more expensive than the tuition.
And the tuition, right.
And it was like, what? And then
$300 per book, it was only $200 per credit hour.
Yeah. And then you see a year later, that book's laying on the, family room floor. You're like, wait a minute, you didn't turn that back in and get, $200 for it?
No, $200, Jeff. No. They'll give you $15.
But then my daughter went to a school where you rented them. So you just showed up.
That's a lot smarter. That's a lot easier for us. I mean, they're not even nickel and diming. That's parents and children.
That's a $10 billing.
Yeah, they're $100 and diming us. Well, let me ask you this: the 529 in Missouri Most, has a 5% kind of kickback on it. So how does that work? If I let's just deal in perfectly round numbers. If I put $100 in, does that mean it's now $105?
It's going to reduce your taxable income on the state by $5.
Okay.
So again, up to $16,000, and it doesn't matter if you had 16 grandkids and you put $1,000, If you had 2 and you did 8 and 8, doesn't make any difference.
So it's going to lower my tax bill
for the state of Missouri by 5%. Whatever you put in by 5%. Technically 4.8.
And then the idea is to push that money back into it?
Well, if you put it in the 529, you get that credit on your state return, and you leave the money in that 529. So as long as it's used for, like what we talked about, higher education, maybe private elementary, maybe private high school, our college, you get to take that out tax-free.
Sure. This is so, and I bet there's grandparents out there right now that are like, I'd love to help, and they're not doing it in the maximized way.
The old school was buy a savings bond, for your
I'll just put it in a separate account, and it's like, no.
Or a savings account was the other one we've seen a lot. They're like, I got $10,000 earning .00,
Can a grandparent put money in a 529 while a parent is doing it for the same kid?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's 2 separate accounts. So the parent has one for the child under their Social Security number. They're the owners, and the child's a beneficiary. The grandparent does the same, but they're the owners until the child turns 18.
My dad is retired and on pension.
Mm-hmm.
Can he have money taken out of his pension and put towards? Does he get taxed? It would be after tax.
Yeah, after tax, he could. So he would get his pension check. He would put it in the bank, or it automatically goes to the bank. He could go in there, grab $100, and go put it in the 529, and he'd get a $5 credit on the state.
But I'm currently working. I'm still working. If I wanted to set it up and put it in from my paycheck, it would be before taxes.
No.
Okay.
It would still be after tax. So you can't do a pre-tax. There is, but it's a totally different variation of what we're talking about. Because anything that goes pre-tax, when you take it out, you're going to pay tax.
Yep.
So it kind of defeats that purpose, other than compounding interest over time.
Sure. All right, and then the credit card that's out there, we're not going to push people into it. We're just going to tell you that it exists. It's, the credit card I have, since we've got a 2.5-year-old, I'm not going to stay at the Four Seasons in Malibu anytime soon, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm like, look, I'm going to open up a credit card that gives us the most cash back on the things we buy every day, groceries and gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could open up an American Express card, and that could give me all these travel points, but I ain't going anywhere.
If you don't travel,
I'm not going anywhere for a long, long time. Yep. So it's like, if you find yourself in a position where you're not traveling and you want to utilize credit card points, this could be an option.
Yeah. So basically what they're saying, it's 2% back on purchases when you deposit those purchases or those rewards back into the 529 plan.
And then
same concept.
Let's talk credit card rewards for just a second, because now we're getting into a weird avenue. When I get cash back, or when I get, if there's you've earned enough to get a gift card to Lowe's for $50. Does that count as income? Does that count as a taxable event?
Technically, no, from a personal standpoint. But the flip of that is if it's a business card, and we have clients who use like the Capital One Spark card, and they buy everything with it. And I mean everything is put on that card. They get huge gift cards or bonuses kicked back to them. Technically, IRS says that's income. Because
when it comes to businesses.
Yeah, it's a couple $1,000 a month. So they use everything. I mean, you name it, it gets put on that Spark card.
And frankly, I don't really know how it works with my credit card, but I immediately hit the button that says pay off the card with this cash back.
But if you look at the math on it, if you pay the card off, you might get 2 cents per perk, if you want to call it that. If you get gift cards with it, it might be 3 cents.
Yeah.
And if you use it for other stuff, it might be 4 cents. So it's
I get all these emails. Hey, this is on sale right now.
Yeah. Capital One's notorious for that.
If you convert it to a Home Depot gift card, you'll get 7%.
You'll get this. Yeah. So the funny part is on one of them, I get Starbucks cards.
Well, I'm sure Starbucks has worked out a deal with Capital One to say push them to buying this card, because we know they're going to have to spend it at our location.
Exactly. So $50 or whatever it is.
Do you think Starbucks kicks in? and says, hey,
there's probably
we'll
some
cover the
deal.
difference.
Yeah, there's some deal in there. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't let them on the platform. So
sure. Yeah, of course. All right. Well, that's how that works. And finding out how a 529 works and can work for your situation, that's worth the cost of a phone call, which is free.
Exactly.
So give Jeff a call, 636-394-5524 if you're a grandparent that wants to save money for college. If you're a parent that wants to save money for college, you can put it in a separate account with your separate savings account, but you're not going to maximize.
Exactly. So look at it as a standpoint. You're getting a tax deduction or a tax credit, I should say, for putting the money in there, even if it's $100. The money then grows tax deferred, and depending again on what your risk tolerance is, you can invest those proceeds, or you could sit in cash. You could go super conservative, super aggressive. They have age-based programs in a lot of these things where you say, my grandchild's 2, they're not going to go to college until they're 18, so they got numerous years to get there, and then it takes off and runs from there.
Yeah. So get it set up, and try to convince mom and dad to kick some in too.
Exactly.
Every Christmas or so.
Yeah.
So it's important, and if you don't end up using it, you can convert it to part of their retirement fund.
Exactly. Starting in 24.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah. So the Inflation Reduction Act. I think there's 80. Don't quote me on this. I think 86 or 85 different adjustments to the retirement rules that are in our favor. I mean, it's actually a pretty cool bill.
Yeah.
Most people look at it and their eyes roll back in their head and go, "You read that?" But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in there that starts kicking in. Some this year, some 24, some 25, and it kind of ventures off.
And if you save money for a good cause, which is higher education or continuing education, because it'll work for trade schools and it'll work for community colleges.
Used to be accredited schools, so a lot of the trade schools became accredited. I don't think that's the term they quite use, but if your son or your daughter decided to go to be a carpenter and you go to the trade school, boom, HVAC, all that stuff qualifies.
Yep. Community colleges, all that, and you shouldn't be penalized because your kid did such a good job in high school that they got a full ride. You shouldn't be penalized because your son or daughter decided to serve our country.
Exactly.
And now their college is paid for using the GI Bill. Yeah. So you can roll it into a retirement fund.
It'll take a little time. And the other thing is, so I always get this question, new married couple, they're like, can we start a 529? We're going to have kids in the next year or two. In the past, no, you couldn't. You had to wait till the child was there.
You needed a Social Security
number. You needed a Social Security number. Trick is, open it in your name now. You're the owner / beneficiary. And then when you have a child, you transfer it.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of items that you could use to your advantage. And again, like I say, there is no silver bullet. You're not just going to do one thing, wave it over your tax return and go, look, you got all this money back. It is stuff like this that you do on a regular basis, and you're chipping away at little by little.
I could do an FSA for health stuff. I could start an HSA. I could do a 529. Yes. That's 3 things right there.
Right there.
And it all adds up. And in my mind, Jeff, as we go into commercial break, I'm thinking, if you've got multiple kids, the oldest, congratulations for doing a job well done, for getting your college paid for.
That's right.
Now you're going to help pay for your younger brother's college.
Flip the bill. Yep.
They're moving your college money off to him. And technically, it wasn't their money to begin with.
Exactly.
Anything, so.
I mean, technically it was. It's for their benefit, but they can't have it until they're 18.
Yep. So. All right. Well, let's go to commercial break, and when we come back, we'll wrap the show up. To get a hold of Jeff, 636-394-5524 for that free consultation. Put it on your calendar. Go in and have a visit with Jeff. Bring a couple of years' tax returns. Bring a couple of paycheck stubs. Bring just a couple of items with you and just say, Jeff, this is our situation.
Yeah.
What can you help us with? Where can we get started? And they'll walk out of that meeting, I'm sure, saying, well, there's at least 1 or 2 things that we know we can do.
Exactly.
And then going forward, I think the hardest part is, number 1, finding out that these things exist.
And how it applies to your situation. A lot of people don't worry about that till it's, after the fact. They go, I could have done that. And we're like, yes.
Implementing these things.
Yes.
on my, because it's got to be taken out of my paycheck. And it's got to be.
Exactly. Paycheck, or it's got to be the dollars have to be in an account by a certain date. The account has to be established by a certain date. There's all kinds of crazy rules out there.
And to be completely honest, and maybe Jeff and my wife have had deeper discussions, but I found out, this FSA, that sounds good. Jeff, make it happen.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to work it.
Exactly.
So Jeff made it happen for us, and we kept $1,200.
Yep.
And we kept it last year, too. All right, I'm going to go to a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll wrap it up. Keep what's yours with Jeff Zufall. Call him, 636-394-5524.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Keep what's yours, Jeff Zufall, Capital Advisory Group. With just a couple of minutes left, what are a couple more things that we want to hit, just real quick?
So this is a workaround on gifting. So if I gave to you more than $17,000, I have to file a gift tax return, pay tax on it. You don't have to report anything. You take the money and run. So one of the workarounds to this, more like typically in say, family issues, is medical expenses. So let's say that somebody, unfortunately had a heart attack. They racked up $30,000 worth of medical bills. If I wrote you a check to help you pay your medical bill, I wrote you a check, you then wrote the hospital check, that's a gift. Okay. So the first $17,000 is exempt. Everything else, I pay a gift tax on it.
Sure.
But if I write a check directly to the hospital, it's not a gift tax for your benefit. As long as my check goes straight to the hospital.
So $30,000 owed to the hospital. If you gave that to me, $17,000 wouldn't be taxed, but $13,000 would.
Exactly.
If you just wrote it directly to the hospital and said, Josh Gilbert,
pay the bill.
This is for his bill. Boom.
Yep, we're done.
We're done.
Yeah, no gift tax, no reporting, no nothing.
Interesting.
And here's another one from educational expenses. So if your parents paid the college bill direct, it is not a gift to you nor your child.
Okay.
So as long as
deal.
Same deal. $17,000 you could stand on the street corner and hand out $17,000 all day long. You never report a gift tax ever. But in the situation where I give you the money, then you make the payment for college and our medical. It's an issue because then you got gift tax issues that kick in.
And theoretically, that makes sense. But if I never touch it,
exactly,
don't even involve me, just write it directly. Why do I have to be once I'm the middleman? Now we got middleman taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah. My son, a big bill. Let's just say he went to Harvard. Fingers crossed. And my parents want to write a check.
Yeah.
Do you want me to make it out to you or your wife? No. Neither.
To
make
the school
it out to
direct.
Harvard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
School, don't give it to the child either. Go school direct.
Again, he's 2.5. I don't know if he's on his path already to the Ivy Leagues, but one can only hope. So
exactly.
That's just a little. And what are the taxes on $13,000? A lot.
From a gift tax standpoint.
Yeah.
And the issue of filing a gift tax return when you really shouldn't have.
More paperwork.
Yes.
That doesn't need to be there.
Exactly.
So another trick that we don't even know about.
Yeah.
And that is why Jeff is worth his weight in gold. And what if we had a big Jeff statue, a big gold idol of Jeff?
People would be throwing darts at it.
Not if it was made of gold. Keep what's yours with Jeff Zufall. That's the name of the show. That's the name of the book. If you're still looking for your refund, go to CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. On his website, there's a button that says, "Where's my refund?"
Exactly. So the big things today are, where's my refund? A lot of people are like, hey, I never got paid yet. Where is it? Go upper right-hand corner, click the button. It'll have IRS. I think we have state of Missouri and state of Illinois. You click on it. You need your tax return in front of you because there's a little bit of data you need to plug in. And it'll tell you, hey, it's still in progress. If it is blank and you see nothing, then, we have an issue.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, something got dropped, and we need to figure that out.
And I was just telling Jeff before the show started, I said, I don't think we've seen it. My wife looked in the account the other day, and she still says it hasn't shown up. Where is it? Jeff's going to check it for me as soon as we get out of here. But it's pretty easy to check yourself as long as you got your...
Social Security number, your filing status, what your actual original refund on the tax return should have been.
And it'll spit you out when you do your taxes, it'll say, here's your refund.
Yeah.
So whatever that number is, $3,991.
We give like a letter, I should say, if you want to call it that. It's a 2-pager, and it says, hey, your federal tax due is X, or your federal refund is X, and your state refund is X. Just go right to that, or the tax return itself, and you can pull the number.
So where's my refund? Do that on CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. And you can also get your free book, Keep What's Yours, via the website as well. Jeff, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. See you next week.
The number again, 636-394-5524. Get a meeting on the calendar. Go to the meeting. Bring some of your couple of years' tax returns and a couple of paycheck stubs and get started keeping your money. See you, Jeff.
See you.
You've been listening to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Manager at Capital Advisory Group. To learn more, call 636-394-5524 or visit CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com.